We're going to cut that out, and we're just going to go right here. I could edit a little bit before I put it in. Oh, there we are. Wrong one. Now it's the right one. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone around and in between, it is DebateSensei Pro Edition. Now, this is a new series that we're adding to our lineup that is going to explore everything that is relevant to competitive speech and debate in the professional realm. That would include people who decide to compete after their eligibility in college, or the people who choose to engage in a career that's involved in competitive speech and debate. And so for our inaugural episode, I have with me Blake Longfellow, the founder of Professional Speech and Debate Association. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate the opportunity to come and tell a little bit about what we're doing.
Excellent. So Professional Speech and Debate Association, the name alone, makes it relevant to what we're talking about, but let's start a little bit with you. How did you end up in the world of competitive speech and debate?
I got involved when I was in high school. I was originally a theater kid who, was getting cast in background roles, and when I found speech and debate, it seemed like an opportunity to, be the star of the show, and so do more of a one-man show rather than ensemble roles, and that attracted me to it originally. And got started in duo in high school. That was one of the only events that we really did in high school, was duo and humorous interpretation. And then as my high school career came to a close, got convinced to continue competing at the community college level and moved down to Southern California, went to Orange Coast College, which at the community college level is a rather large program. Competed there for a few years, won the Bavaro Award and a bunch of other awards at the community college level, which helped me earn a scholarship to continue my career at the four-year level. Went out to Peoria, Illinois, to Bradley University, which historically is one of the best speech teams in the country. Competed there for 2 more years, won multiple team championships and the individual informative speaking national championship for NFA in 2011. Parlayed that into a full ride scholarship at Western Kentucky to earn my master's degree while coaching there, another historic program, Western Kentucky. And after grad school, I was kind of burnt out on speech and debate for a bit, came back home to California, went into the summer camp industry, became co-owner of my childhood summer camp and ran summer camps up in the Santa Cruz Mountains for a few years.
Okay.
And then slowly got pulled back into speech and debate. And then now I'm fully back in and have made it my whole career in a couple of different ways, both teaching and also running organizations like PSDA and Higher Judge.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking multiple times about the many roles that you play in competitive speech and debate on the professional level. But this one is about your brainchild and passion project, the Professional Speech and Debate Association. So what motivated you to start the PSDA?
Yeah, well, PSDA was founded with simple mission of making speech and debate the most popular extracurricular activity in the world. That's our mission statement. And there's a few ways we went about that. The original brainchild for PSDA was creating a professional league, trying to become like an NBA or an NFL, but for speech and debate. And had some success with that early on and had to continue to tweak, refine the model. We started with 1 tournament every month, and for professional working adults, that was too many. And then went down to 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring, but then that doesn't really have enough of a circuit since there is no other real circuit for professional competitors outside of maybe IPDA. There is no place else to go do speech or go do extemporaneous or things like that. So have settled in now on a once a quarter kind of schedules. So once every 3 months, we have an online tournament for both former competitors and also for people that never competed before. We have 2 divisions, similar to how most speech and debate has open or novice. We have professional and developmental as our 2 divisions, about once a quarter.
Professional and developmental.
Yeah,
Okay.
same idea as like open or novice.
Okay.
But the professional division is open, where you're encouraged to only participate in that if you have experience doing speech and debate before. And those folks are competing for cash prizes. If you win the professional division in your event, you win a cash prize depending on how big the event was. And then the developmental division is more like a novice division. It's for people that have never done speech and debates. That way they aren't having to go up against someone who's been doing it since middle school at their first ever tournament. And, it's kind of like a novice division, so people can get the skills without having to compete against the best of the best.
Yeah, part of the motivation for just having like this broadcast was for me to just kind of stay sharp and stay connected with the community and help provide connections for others to do it as well. Who would you say you attract as competitors? Who participates in these type of tournaments?
It's really all over the board. In the first season, we had some of what you would guess, which is former competitors turned coaches who are wanting to brush up on their skills or who missed their glory days of competing. And we had a number of those. But then we also had people who competed in high school, had been out the game for 10 years, and are now attorneys, or even a competitor that was trying to become a judge in New York City. And we had a number of different competitors like that from a wide range of backgrounds. So some that did speech and debate at a high level, some that did it but had been out of the game for a while and were coming back, and then still some others competing in the professional division that had never competed previously.
Okay.
Nowadays, we have a lot of those types of folks. So over the last 4 years, have had a ton of interest and people reaching out saying, hey, I found PSDA, but I'm not quite ready to compete in a tournament just yet. How can I find a coach, or is there a team I can join? And what I found is that there really wasn't anywhere good to send them. Most of the education was focused on either K through 12 groups, middle school and high school, or if it was adult education, you needed to be enrolled in a particular college. You needed to be enrolled in a certain number of units at that college to be eligible to do speech and debate. And there's all this kind of gatekeeping around access to what we do in speech and debate. But there's certainly interest in it. And so over the last 4 years, we've slowly shifted more towards that audience rather than professional competitors and people that competed all through high school and college, instead more towards people competing at their first ever tournament. And that's more or less where we are now. That's where the majority of interest for PSDA is people that have never done speech and debate before, being able to get access to these skills. And it's very adult education oriented as a model.
I mean, that is one difference between your story and mine, where I kind of discovered it in college. I was a year and a half into college, and I didn't even know that this world existed. And so I kind of already felt like an adult joining it. And I was just overwhelmed by everything that you can do, and was trying to jump in with both feet. And so I can only imagine somebody who is like trying to juggle a career and do this. That would be a really interesting sort of take on it. I mean, so the people that are doing this, are they doing it like as a professional development tool?
Yeah, it's a wide range, right? There's a lot of different motivations, but most of it is professional development. It's really fun, the classes, because it's all students who want to be there, which I'm also a college professor, just like you. I coach and teach at the community college level. And, college students want to be there, but it's still serving some higher goal of getting into a university or looking good on the resume. And one difference with our PSDA speech and debate classes for adults is it's all students who have paid a couple $100 to be there, who are really invested in the experience and want to get everything they can out of it. So there's some who are pretty confident speakers and want to be able to get sharper. And then there's some who are just terrified when, the spotlight gets turned on them, and they don't want to panic in those situations anymore. And so big, wide range. Another thing that you mentioned is that it was overwhelming when you came in to speech and debate college level, right? At the college level, we have like 11 speech events and 3, 4, 5 different debate events that you can do, depending on where you're at. At the high school level, you end up with like 25 different events, depending on what circuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's something that I think we got right from the start with PSDA. That is still the model to this day, which is we simplified the events. And so we just offer 4 events. And that's prepared speech, which is kind of like all of your public address or platform speeches all in one event. So it's like persuasive, informative, original oratory, original advocacy. All of those are in one event called prepared speech. And the only rule really is it's 10 minutes or less, and it must be an original speech. So you must have written yourself. In that same vein, we have prepared acting, which is all of the interpretation events combined into one event or less. And for anyone listening, that's like your prose, your dramatic interpretation, duo, HI, poetry, all those types of events all in one event that we call prepared acting. We have spontaneous speech, which is basically impromptu, and that's kind of called the same thing at every level. But 7 minutes, you're given a prompt, or rather you're given a set of 4 prompts, and then you choose one to prepare a speech on and deliver the speech within that 7-minute time limit. And the last one is spontaneous debate, sometimes also called SPAR or spontaneous argumentation, but we call it spontaneous debate. And so all of the names of our events are very public facing for someone who's never done speech and debate, who maybe doesn't know what the word impromptu or extemporaneous means, or even parliamentary debate, right? These are terms that when the public interacts with it, it doesn't really communicate what they should expect in that event. So our events are named in a way that, right, when you hear the name spontaneous debate, okay, I'm going to give us a debate and I'm going to have a short amount of time to prepare, right? Or prepared, I'm going to give a speech, but I have time to prepare. I'm going to prepare before the event. So 4 events, and trying to, as I say, flatten the learning curve for forensics. That I think you see it all the time at the community college level. You spend the first year just trying to get people up to speed on what this whole thing even is and what their options are and what events they might be interested in. And it's usually not until their second or even third year that they start to like flourish in this activity.
Right.
And so I'm trying to flatten that learning curve a little bit and make it simpler for anybody to get involved, even if they don't have a coach.
All right. So 4 events, 2 divisions, right?
That's right.
All right. Okay.
4 tournaments
here. Yeah. Have you seen any? Okay. So you say you're attracting all types, but more and more they seem to be like first time at a tournament, right?
That seems to be the need, right? That seems to be the audience out there that's not really being serviced by any other organization.
Okay. So the people that did have some experience, did you notice any difficulty transitioning to a professional sort of circuit?
Yeah, in part because of the types of events that we do. So spontaneous debate, you have people who did Lincoln Douglas or who did policy debate who are now having to dumb things down to a very, very simple form of debate that we call spontaneous debate, which is just a 12-minute debate format. You give 2 speeches and there's a 2-minute cross-examination period. So it's very short, very lay and conversational, and like delivery and persuasion focused. And so I think some students who maybe were high-level speed technical debaters struggled with that transition.
Okay.
Likewise, some of the other events, there's just norms and different levels of this activity or different regions that folks needed to adapt to. But seems like most have done that well.
All right. So I'm trying to think about what the professional speech and debate, like as far as the competitive levels, not for the people getting employment, but like for competitions, for people that are entering as professionals at tournaments. What does that landscape look like? What are some other players in there, and like how does that position PSDA amongst them?
So a couple things there. There's some other organizations that service a similar audience, like Toastmasters, for example, or IPDA IPDA debate has a professional level that folks compete in. And so there are a couple of other organizations like that. As I mentioned, there's not really anyone else doing the speech side of things the way that we are. There's no one else offering SPAR debate, which is, in my opinion, the most public or lay-friendly debate format that we've created to date. one of the other, kind of interesting things is throughout most people's experience competing in speech and debate, it's through some sort of a school or an organization who has a coach who handles all the tournament registration, who handles finding judges, who handles finding or paying entry fees and all those types of things, which doesn't really exist at the professional level. There aren't formal teams the way that there are. There certainly aren't coaches that are doing the registering for these teams of adults. So that's dictated some of the platforms that we operate the tournament on. We started on forensicstournament.net, went over to Tabroom, but when we did so, the pro division more or less went to zero. And that's in part because Tabroom's structure isn't really set up for like an individual competitor that's not affiliated with the team. So if you're a random person who's never done speech and debate, I would have to give these people pretty detailed instructions about how to go create an account and then find our tournament and then register themselves and then find a judge and provide the judge and train them and all these things.
Right.
And so we've eventually come back to forensicstournament.net. So that way I just handle all the tournament registration for everyone who signs up from our organization. The public can still register themselves, but if you register through our website, which is ProSDA.com, if you register through the website, I'll handle all the registration for you. And we also handle all the judging. That's baked into the cost of the tournament fee, which is just $40 an entry, but that includes your judges. And if you competed in middle school and high school, but then maybe never were a coach, judging isn't really something you ever thought about, right? A coach always kind of handled that for you, maybe never really needed to go out and secure your own judges or figure out what that costs. And so that's been an interesting pain point for some people to participate, is not being able to provide a judge. And so we just took all that headache out of it, and the judging is included as a part of the entry fee. And then, as you know, I also run a judge company called Hired Judge, and I'm able to pull in people from there. And I think that also leads to a better experience, because now you have certainty that there's no bias in these judges. None of them were provided by the other teams that are attending, which I've always kind of thought was a crazy model. It's like having parents ref your kid's soccer game. They have a vested interest in the outcome, right? Their child. It's kind of the same with judges. You have the coach of these students judging their competition. They might not judge their own student, but there's still these kind of perverse incentives.
Even if the majority of judges are able to be objective, or all you need is a certain percentage to spoil the whole experience.
Even if 100% of them are objective, the potential for bias leads to less satisfaction for the competitors. It allows the competitors to say, "Oh, that judge just hates me," or "That judge just doesn't like our school." And I think that creates a lot of problems and a lot of negative attitudes amongst students. The other thing with that is, I mentioned there's kind of perverse incentives with that model. You have coaches judging other students, and we want judges to give as much feedback to these students as possible and help them succeed and help them improve. But ultimately, like on the community college circuit, it's a small enough world that I know my student's going to have to compete against them in the future. And so why am I going to coach this student to one day be able to beat my student, right?
Yeah.
It requires a certain amount of altruism from the judges. And fortunately, a lot of people, I think, do lean into that and do a good job to try and help students and remember that this is education at the end of the day. But it's like an inherent conflict between education and competition,
Right.
And so that's the other reason why having the judges be included in something that's completely separate from the teams attending, I think, is a solid model.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you say that, I'm wondering how the others do it. I guess IPDA is still part of a college infrastructure. Is that like the way they're getting their judges from for the pro division?
That's a good question. I don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't want to speak on that since I don't know a definite answer. I don't really know how Toastmasters sources judges either necessarily.
That's an interesting question. I'm curious about that. So we were talking about your tournaments. When's the next one that is coming up?
December 14th.
Okay.
So again, with our tournaments being focused on or rather, our organization being focused on people that never competed in speech and debate, trying to make things as accessible as possible and flatten the learning curve. That's something that's also changed in the last couple of years. In year one, we had 4 prelim rounds and then a semifinal and a final. And that allowed us to do a lot of cool things, like have a drop rank for every student. So that way you could afford to have a bad round and it wouldn't take you out of contention.
Right.
And that was cool for people who have competed in speech and debate for a long time, who understand the flaws with having a shorter tournament and these things. But if it's your first tournament ever and you're just trying to get up this prepared speech and make it through the day and get to the round, and someone tells you, oh, at your first tournament, you need to give the speech at least 4 times in a day. And then if you do a good job, you get to give it 2 more times. For a lot of people, that's kind of intimidating and could be a deal breaker, not just for the amount of work involved, but that's a whole day. Right?
Yeah.
You're giving up a whole day.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a speech and debate team or a speech and debate tournament. So we have shortened the schedule, 2 prelims and a final.
Right.
Okay. That allows us enough variance in the ranks that we get in prelims to determine who our top 6 are. And we'll have a final round. The whole tournament's done in under 5 hours, and you can get back to your Saturday, right? You can still have a morning, you can still have an evening. It's just a 5 or 6 hour tournament in the middle of the day on Saturday.
Okay. And so up to this point, like there is a somewhat of a barrier to entry that you've recently addressed, right? And that barrier being people were interested, but they didn't know how to get from where they were to tournament ready, right? Like it's like, I want to do it, but I don't trust that I'm able to get myself there. No. And so now you have coaching included. Yes. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's something that I strayed away from, or rather tried not to do for the first couple of years. I really wanted to position PSDA as a neutral kind of third party. Again, the NFL doesn't own a team. The NBA doesn't own a team.
Right.
They don't coach players. And so I tried to not get into the coaching for the first couple of years because I just thought that was a better model. But eventually found that here's this huge audience about once a week or twice a week. Had someone emailing me for the last 4 years asking about coaching or things like that. And I had nowhere to send them. And I've tried a couple other organizations I could send to, but they either weren't really set up to coach adults, or if they were, the adults need to be registered through a school. And so to your question, this fall we have started doing classes. We do 10-week online Zoom classes. It's once a week, 2-hour sessions. And that allows students to get a taste of all 4 events that we do. Again, prepared speech, prepared acting, spontaneous speech, and spontaneous debate. They get a taste of each of those, and they get to choose at least one to compete in at the end of the tournament. And that tournament entry fee is included in the cost of the class. Mm-hmm. And those have kicked off this fall, and so far they're awesome. It's been really rewarding working with these adults. I mentioned how exciting it is having adults that want to be there, that have decided to invest in themselves and to get better at their communication skills. And it's a really rewarding experience getting to work with folks like that. And, after all day at college, working with college students that don't necessarily want to be there all the time. Yeah, it's been nice to come home and work with adults that want to be there.
Okay. And so you said 10 weeks.
Yep.
Okay. That seems like it would be really good, just a package deal. You go to someone in HR, you're like, hey, I know you got a professional development budget. Here's my proposal. Seriously, there's companies out there that offer package deals like that, and would absolutely, they would actually cover the cost for their employees to do something like that. It would be absolutely perfect. A program like that, absolutely great.
I should pursue that and try to strike some more deals with organizations like that. We're still figuring out the model, still. I
think it's good.
The curriculum, but I do think that's the direction we're headed.
I think it's good to figure it out first. You know what I mean? Because the more that you can just get it automated, push a few buttons, and I could serve however many people you need with that, and it could expand with that as well. So getting through this 10 weeks, what's your plans afterwards? How are you planning on growing this thing, or are you?
I've been kind of blown away by the traction so far. Folks just finding us online. I run a little bit of Google ads just to make sure that people see our name pop up when they search for things like adult debate classes. But
Yeah.
We're gaining enough traction to be profitable in these classes all in the first year, and that's exciting. And plan to just reinvest that in growing it and offering more classes in the spring. So the next term, there's still 2 classes that start this fall, but like the Sunday morning class doesn't start for another week or 2. But
Okay.
After our December 14th tournament, we'll take a couple weeks off for the holidays, and then we come back in the first week of January. The next set of classes start up, and they go for 10 weeks with a tournament in March. After that, take a couple weeks off, and there's another set of classes that'll start up at the end of March and take us into the summer, and then a summer set of classes. So 4 semesters a year, basically. Each semester is 10 weeks with like a 2-week gap or so in between each semester, and each semester ends with the tournament. And then long-term, how to grow it is increasing the number of classes that we offer. Also realizing that there's some demand for more seminar-style classes, like a 1-day Saturday workshop rather than 10 weeks, giving up your Thursday night or your Sunday morning every week for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And so that's another way that we're looking to grow, is offer more kind of one weekend or 1-day opportunities for folks to get a crash course. And then long-term partnerships with groups looking for professional development opportunities, like you said, is kind of a no-brainer, low-hanging fruit for us.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, we're going to be talking about a number of different roles that you play in competitive speech at the professional level in the future. Blake Longfellow, thank you so much for joining us and talking about your project, the Professional Speech and Debate Association.
Really appreciate the opportunity, Jared. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Okay. So in the future, we're going to be talking more about things related to this. If you are interested and you are involved in competitive speech and debate in some sort of professional capacity, either as a competitor, a coach, or running programs, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. All right. I'll see you later, everybody.